Today, I'd like to bring into the conversation the quality of our inner voice and particularly that critical voice inside. Because for us, as high achievers, broad thinkers, deep feelers, this voice that pushes us, that helps us to keep showing up, the one that even if we're exhausted, even if we're overwhelmed, we still figure out a way to keep moving, even through the fatigue, we show up anyway. This voice is the one that has pushed us to where we are, that has helped us to continue to be resilient and keep going when things were hard, when things are hard, and helps us step away from the experience of seeing ourselves as weak or feeling weak. And we convince ourselves that holding it together, keep going, is actually a sign of strength. And it's not that it isn't, because it helps us achieve a lot. But when you notice that you're anxious, that you're grasping, either for control or for peace or for an experience that you feel is separate from you, when you notice that you are often on the push, perform, crash cycle, the burnout cycle, it's like you're doing well for a while, you've got it handled, you're doing it, right? It's not for a lack of trying, a lack of effort, but then you reach that peak where you're like, okay, now I'm at my edge and I'm starting to crumble, and I'm noticing that gap internally widen between what my life looks like and how I feel. And the reason why I wanted to bring this topic into conversation today is because I actually started training again. So for all of the athletes in the room, I'm not going to divulge what I'm training for because I need more time with my body to see like where I'm at in my physical health and what I can actually achieve in a realistic time frame. So I'm not going to divulge like what I'm training for yet, just so I can not make false promises in case it doesn't happen. But I bought a road bike recently, and I've been back on my road bike for the first time in about 5 years. And about 5 years ago, I had a knee injury from running. So it set me back physically in a lot of ways. But injuries or burnout, even these things that happen that actually stop our normal routine, are blessings in disguise because they give us an opportunity to consider how we've been moving through life, how we've been navigating life. And since I got back on the road bike, I've been cycling with this group of women in my local area. And it's been so much fun to connect in this way. It's been so much fun to feel that I'm a part of something as well. And everyone is pushing themselves. So you have your individual goals, but you're doing it in a group. And it's very clear that everyone is at a different level. And since I haven't been training, I am definitely the slowest and the weakest in the group. And for any high-performing perfectionist type A personality, you know how hard it is to not be the best in the group and to really be confronted with like, no matter how much I push myself, like I'm not going to get any faster. Like I literally don't have the muscle mass in my legs at the moment and in my back to make myself move at a faster pace and longer endurance like I would like these other ladies who have been training for way longer than me. So it's been a really beautiful opportunity to sit with the voice and the dialogue in my head. And the last few rides that I've been out on my bike were like between 2 and 3 hours. So I haven't had any headphones, no music. I was raw dogging the entire experience. And if you've been in this space before, one of the things you might have heard me mention that I encourage is when you go for walks or when you do take time for yourself, experiment and explore with the habit of not taking any headphones with you. No podcasts, no music, just you and what you're doing and the dialogue that happens in your mind. Because often when we have so much stress built up in our system, silence feels like a threat. But in truth, silence is not empty. It's filled with answers if we are brave and courageous enough to listen. If we're brave and courageous enough to listen, to pay attention, and to get curious on what is happening inside of me when I am in the stillness and in the silence. Anxiety brings us away from the present. Anxiety is anticipation of what might happen, what might not happen in the future. Depression or those lower vibrational experiences are a fixation, even if it's unconscious, on the past. What I didn't do, what I could have done, what could have been different. So either way, it separates us from the present moment. It separates us from now. Either we're fixated about the uncertainty of the future, or a part of us is still clinging to the past. So one foot in the past, so we can't fully be here now and create from a space of presence and here and nowness. And when you explore and experiment with not taking the headphones, not taking the phone, not even taking a watch sometimes, like if you can do that, of course, there are obligations and responsibilities in life that we have that may not allow us to disappear for hours on end, but all you need is 10 minutes. 10 minutes of exploration, or even 5 minutes, and just noticing how it feels to be without stimulus. So as I was on my bike for these long periods of time, no headphones, no podcast, just some conversation with the ladies I was with, or when I was in like my pain cave, it was just me in my head. And it was so interesting to notice that little voice in the back of my mind that was like, get your ass up that hill, push harder, like crank out the last bit of energy that you have. Don't be a little wimpy, and like, I'm not going to curse here, but I do curse a lot actually in my personal life. But like, you get the picture. I know from working with countless women over years and being a woman that identifies in this way too, who's like a recovering perfectionist, who is a recovering stress addict, like that addiction to stress. Like no one gets into endurance sports because we love an easy life. Like there's a part of us that like loves to suffer a little bit, and like that peace and euphoria that comes after that push towards exhaustion. And this doesn't have to look in the same way, like in sport, but it can be in your work ethic and holding it all together for everyone else. All of the work that you have to do, all of the focus, or being a high achiever at work and always wanting to improve yourself, wanting to gain more insight, more information, this go, 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 go attitude, push harder, do more, learn more, be better. Yeah. That there often comes this experience where once I arrive or once I push myself to that absolute limit, then I can deserve peace and stillness and good things to happen. Then I can be fully relaxed and present right here in the now. And when this voice creeped up, I have not heard it in my mind for a few years. When I got injured a few years ago and I couldn't participate in sport the same way that I did, previously. And for those of you that know my story, I used to work in the outdoor experiential education industry. So being physically active was just a part of the job. I didn't really go out of my way to go to the gym to maintain physical fitness because my job was so active. I would be on my feet for the entire day. I would be away from home from weeks at a time, supporting students and leaders through expeditions and challenges like hiking mountains, rock climbing cliffs, camping in the jungle, or, canoeing in lakes and oceans, and just really active lifestyle. So when I did get injured, it was the first time that I've ever had a serious injury in my adult life or my life ever that stopped me. It completely prevented me from being able to even push through the pain and continue to do the exercise or the work that I was doing because I physically couldn't walk without my knee buckling beneath me. And it took a long time to heal, and I'm still in recovery, if I'm honest. But it was the first time that I started to explore and befriend that voice in my head. And I realized that the amount that I've achieved, that inner grit and resilience that pushes me forward, was actually like an inner asshole, like an inner jerk in my mind. And this inner jerk came out to play this last weekend when I was on my bike. It wasn't loud, but I noticed it in the back of my head when I was the last one, the slowest one in the group, and everyone was so far ahead of me, but I had no juice left in my body to even keep up. That voice was there to hold me accountable, to remind me, don't you stop, keep going. You can do this. You better do this. You're not weak. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep pushing. Who can relate to this? Who has one of these in their mind? And maybe as I verbalize this out loud, it's the first time that you might be considering this. Maybe you've never even thought about, well, how does the voice in my head sound like when I give it enough space to come through and when I listen? Until we give ourselves the space to really consider the quality of the voice in our mind, it feels like us. It feels like who we are. But if you can notice it, that means intrinsically that it is not who you are. It is a part of you and it serves a purpose. So this is such a beautiful group of women. We're all from the ages of early 20s to their early 60s or mid 60s. And everyone is in a different stage of life. There's mothers of twins and then a toddler, all under 4. There's women who have survived cancer and they started this endurance sport and it's their comeback. Then there's just like psychos like me who are like, yeah, I like to suffer a little bit. Let's do this. I love to be outside. Let's see how far I can push my body and my mind. And everyone has a different reason and purpose of being there. So it's a really inclusive group. So they eventually waited for me, but you know how it is a high achiever when like you see everyone leaving and you're the last one, you're like, son of a gun, I physically can't. But then that voice is telling you like, you should be able to do this. You should have it handled. You should be better. You should be stronger. Who can relate? Not everyone necessarily has this voice that drives them forward. They might have a similar quality voice, but it's not always connected to action and to doing. So sometimes you can have an inner critic in your mind, but it doesn't necessarily drive you forward. It actually keeps you in cycles of procrastination and inaction. So this is why I say this space is specifically for the high achievers, the deep feelers, the broad thinkers, the leaders, the carers, the teachers, because the quality is different. And of course, we all get stuck in cycles of procrastination and whatnot, but characteristically as high achievers and women that are used to holding a lot and pushing through, even when it's hard, that voice is a driving motivator to push us forward. But for some people, it actually pulls them to the bottom end of the spectrum and keeps them in inaction. So at the center is fear. Fear of looking weak, fear of being the odd one out, fear of being left behind, fear of looking stupid. All of these fears were in my mind as I was like slowly like going, like as they're slowly outpacing me and they're going like this and I'm just like inching up this ginormous hill because Portugal is all hills. And this is what this voice protects us from. And as high achievers, the doers, the dreamers, the believers, it drives us forward and it is masking us from experiencing that fear at the center. So it's pushing us away from it. Like if I can keep going, if I can do better, if I could gain more knowledge, hold more, be more perfect, more put together, less tired, more happy, more chill, more relaxed, then I don't have to feel the reality of the things I actually worry about that are a threat to my ego, that are a threat to my identity. So if you see yourself as someone who's a strong individual, an athlete, an achiever, and then there's someone better than you or stronger than you or knows more than you, and there will always be someone who knows more in some area of life, who is stronger in some area, who is smarter in some area, right? This is humanity. We are always, maybe we're one level up above someone else, and there's always someone who's a level up from us, always. But it's where that mind goes for comparison. So unconsciously, when you're noticing anxiety, when you're noticing overwhelm, when you're noticing that stress voice in your mind, like pushing you forward, and now you're fatigued, now you're anxious, now you're overwhelmed, it's a driving force pushing you away from feeling discomfort. The discomfort of fear, the discomfort of worry, the discomfort of looking silly or a threat to your identity. So if I identify as strong, independent, resilient, whatever it is, and there's someone who's better than me, and I haven't learned to anchor deep within myself yet to stay connected in regulation, then my stress responses are going to take over, and that voice is going to drive me into action or disconnect me from action and inaction, because my identity is being threatened in this way. Now that we've talked about how this voice might appear, I want to connect it back to how the stress happens in the body, because it's not isolated. And the biggest mistake I see is people trying to change their mindset and forcefully change this inner voice through positive affirmations. I'm calm, or I'm confident, or I'm relaxed, and repeating these mantras to yourself without noticing and really understanding what's happening in the physical body. And then we get frustrated that we're not seeing the change we want. We call it self-sabotage, but actually this voice in your mind that is a pusher, the doer, the overachiever, it serves a purpose, right? It's helped us get to where we are. And unless we learn a new way to take action and move forward without all of the stress and anxiety and pressure attached to it, it's going to continue to make us take action from the space of stressful experience, because we haven't yet learned that another way is possible. So when things are often feeling too relaxed or too calm, our internal voice interprets that as not doing enough, it's lazy, things won't get done. And it's this addiction to the urgency, that the urgency and stress is the only way to move forward and to get things done. And that if we're too calm or too relaxed or too easygoing, we won't find the energy that we need to stay consistent, to keep showing up. And there might even be a fear that without the stress, I'm gonna give up, or I'm gonna fail, or I might realize that I don't actually want to do this. And what will that mean? What will be the ripple effect? If you're not an endurance athlete, right, which most people aren't, we can learn a lot from the mindset that is adopted from professional athletes. And like, I'm not a professional athlete. I used to joke that I was a professional athlete because I would get paid to climb and do all of these adventurous sports, but I wasn't going to the Olympics. You know what I mean? I was a recreational endurance and adventure athlete, and I still am. This is where I learned this mindset, and where I really started to notice that in my previous work, before I started Expand and Impact, before the regulation room, is that there was a huge gap. There was this obsession, especially with our personality type. This is important because it's not everyone, it's our personality type. There was this obsession with acquiring more information and using your mental strength to persevere and to get through, that you start to override your physical body. You start to override the physical symptoms of stress that are signaling to you, hey, we're running on pressure. This isn't sustainable, because it'll keep you going, but then you're going to crash. Then you're going to get sick. Then you're going to be exhausted. Anxiety disorders, there's a most prescription medication prescribed for anxiety, specifically for women. It's disproportionate gender-wise. And this isn't an accident. And the same with chronic illness. Women have higher percentages diagnosed of chronic illness than our counterparts. A big piece of this equation is not having a deeper understanding of how to regulate our emotions and our stress responses. And so we try to force change through sheer grit and willpower, that mental attitude that's like, I will keep going. I will get my butt up this hill. I will not be weak. I will not appear weak. I will do it. That we disconnect from the stress it's actually causing us. And it's making us always grasp and chase the feeling of presence, of peace, of satisfaction, of achievement. It's making us chase and be in the continuous cycle of movement, when the actual thing that we can do is experience more of that now and allow this calmer, more grounded energy to be our fuel instead. I learned this personally as well, and I teach this with the women that I work with. It's a journey, it's a process, of course. I learned this through my own experience, because this negative voice was the one that drove me for so many years. And she was even on the bike with me for a little while, but she wasn't leading me. That was the difference. And so I remember when I ran my first half marathon a few years ago, right before this injury, this is what led to my injury. This was the first time in my entire adult life, and this is after years of doing this work, being in recovery from stress and perfectionism, and really coming into connection with my emotional experience and not seeing it as a weakness, but seeing it as information to how I'm living and the decisions I'm making or not making. Yeah. So I learned this also in my own journey when I ran my first half marathon, and I had a kind voice in my mind. And it was actually encouraging. And I remember experiencing such euphoria running. And I'm not even a big runner, really not good at running. I'm always the slowest runner. I'm so slow, but I don't care. I'm out there anyway. But it was the first time that I remember crossing that distance because it was a self-led half marathon that I did. I wasn't in a race. I just went out and did it on my own. And I was looking at my watch to track my distance. And that last like 500 meters, I just had encouragement. And I had this voice saying, "You are loving awareness. You are out here. You are awesome. You are so worthy." And what a change. I felt like a winner before I had even crossed that metaphorical or physical finish line. And so there is so much we can achieve through mental grit and willpower. And also, mental grit and willpower alone often perpetuates the push, perform, crash, burnout, exhaustion, self-doubt cycle because of that quality of that inner voice and that dialogue. And before this experience, my body, my nervous system didn't know that a different reality existed, that I can actually show up and do hard things gently. I can do hard things gently, and I can feel like a winner before I've won. And this is what I want for everyone to experience. And it's a physiological experience from the inside out. This is learning how to master your stress responses. It's learning how to work with that voice in your mind and not identify with it, and also not push it away and want it to disappear and override it, because we can't do that. Physiologically, it's impossible. I could get into the neurobiology of why it's impossible. That's not what the space is for, so I won't. But that voice in the mind causes stress in our body. Like, it actually increases our cortisol, it creates anxiety, it manufactures pressure, because if we have a belief that if I'm too relaxed, I won't get things done, then that voice will manufacture stress and pressure because we believe that's the only way we can get things done. Because we haven't yet learned that I can actually be calm and grounded now and still do hard things and get things done. And so you might notice that there's a tension in the body, or this hypervigilance that you just can't shake, or this tightness in your chest or your throat, or this urgency that even when you're not doing anything, you feel these tingly sensations, and there's that urgency. So you can't fully be here now and present, but you also can't mobilize and do something. Or when you are doing something, you're going through the motions, but you're not actually connected with being there. You know, how many times have you like gotten into the car and driven somewhere, and then you don't even remember getting there, but you've done it so many times that you like end up at the parking lot of the local supermarket and you're like, oh, how did I get here? My brain completely turned off. This is how our nervous system works on autopilot. And the reason why we can do that is because we've rehearsed that pathway, that action so many times that we don't even have to think about it consciously anymore to get it done. And our nervous system and urgency and anxiety works the same way. So we have to practice a new pathway, a new way of being, until we actually built that neural network in the mind where that becomes the default, that becomes familiar. And that's what creates sustainable long-term change. And that's when that voice effortlessly starts to become kinder. And ladies inside my private spaces in the regulation room know some of the modalities we use directly work with the stress body, but also tapping into the fear and the worry and the doubt. So we're not overriding it with positive affirmations and like being strong and pretending it's not there, but we're actually meeting that discomfort. We're meeting the part of ourselves that's like what's beneath the pushing. What's beneath the exhaustion or the urgency or the hypervigilance? Like, what am I really worried in this specific situation will happen? Because there was a time long ago where that might have happened, which is why there's that fear, like you might have felt embarrassed or ashamed, or you might have been shamed, or you might have been bullied in school. So this voice transformed into this inner critic that's really driving you forward, or outer critic, because it's protecting you from ever feeling weak or vulnerable again, or from like not feeling like respected or included again. And this is particularly true to women like us, because also the way society is structured. How many experiences have you had where you're standing in a room expressing an idea and no one responds to you, or someone repeats your idea and then they take it off as theirs and they're looking through you, and this feeling of I have to fight to be heard and to be seen and to be respected, to be included, especially when you have big goals and dreams and you are ambitious. And this can, ambition can look in a variety of ways. There's not one definition, but especially in these scenarios when you have this predisposition of wanting to be better, wanting to do more, wanting to succeed and achieve. And then you're in these situations and these environments where it feels like you have to put in twice the effort, 5 times the effort, or hide parts of yourself in order to be accepted, respected, and loved, or belong, or be included. That voice changes because of those experiences that we've had. And, I come from working in a male-dominated industry, endurance sports. We're the only ladies out there on the road surrounded by all men. We're the only ones. And when they ride past us, obviously their body produces more testosterone, so they are naturally stronger and faster in a variety of ways. Like they pass us and they like catcall to us, like with encouragement or like something funny, but like how many situations have you been in? So like the body remembers these situations, and that creates stress, and that perpetuates that voice, and that perpetuates the struggle between closing the gap between what your life looks like and how you feel, because it's creating stress. Until we know how to work with it on a deeper level and how to really meet what's beneath the surface at the root, to give an opportunity for that voice in the mind to change into a more encouraging and kinder voice, and to really trust that there is a different way. And trust is a feeling too. You gain it through trying things and obviously having physical proof, but sometimes and many times in life won't give you evidence that something will work out, right? We seek certainty, we seek evidence, but life very seldomly has any guarantees. And even if you're the hardest worker in the room, there's no guarantee that what you're working towards is going to work out. Success is not guaranteed, even if you're the hardest worker in the room. And so there comes a level of trust, of self-trust, that we have to learn to tap into and to allow to bloom. And when we expand that trust inside, that voice starts to change. Because that critical voice is a mistrustful voice. It's the one that doesn't fully believe there's another way. It's the one that doesn't want to let it slip, doesn't want to be let down, doesn't want to let people down. And so it's mistrustful. So I suppose my question for you is, how do you experience self-trust? If you're really honest with yourself, if you don't look at how your life looks and what you've achieved, how does self-trust feel in your body? And is it maybe certain areas of your life that you feel trusting and you trust yourself deeply? Or do you have that innate, deep level of trust for life to support you, to work out for you, that you can handle it? Because this is true regulation, and this is really mastering the mind-body connection. It's trusting that I can do hard things gently. I can still show up, I can still hold, I can be an achiever without sacrificing myself, without abandoning myself, without making myself smaller, without silencing myself, without always bending to someone else's will and desire. I trust myself to hold in that.